That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, that was a fantastic week of football. I mean, we have had so much fun in these matchups, going through, tracking every single game, trying to figure out where we're stacking up. I mean, y'all know I'm playing in close to about 200 real money fantasy football leagues this year. So it was a wild Sunday to go through with that experience, but at the same time, it was extremely fun. We got a ton of calls right. We got a ton of calls wrong as well. And we're going to start off at the very top with what we got wrong in lessons that we learned going forward to improve in 2021. But before we get into it, guys, make sure you go down there, drop a like, subscribe to the channel. We are live streaming every single day this season, putting out videos every single day. Tomorrow, we got waiver wire videos coming. Later on in the week, we got buy, sell videos in terms of buying players low, aka Ezekiel Elliott, selling players high, aka Deebo Samuel. But of course, we'll get into those guys later on the week. Just make sure you subscribe. And that should be it. Let's go through and let's talk about these lessons. And the first lesson that we learned, it was a tough one. It's these rookie wide receivers are ready to play right now. Now, if you came out to a live stream by me this week, if you watched one of our do not start wide receiver videos, you probably heard me say that Devonta Smith, Jamar Chase, these were both players that we are extremely excited about this season. However, I did not want to be willing to put them into our starting lineup in week one because we go back and we think about 2020. You really think about any season that we have had since 2014, whenever I started playing in a high volume of leagues and started covering everything. And since then, those rookie wide receivers historically, while yes, you can always find those breakout guys, while yes, you can always have a Justin Jefferson, a T. Higgins, a CD Lamb, we need to realize that those rookie wide receiver breakouts, the majority of the times, they're not coming right away in week one. They're not coming until about week 3, week 4, until those guys can get their footing under themselves. So I said, despite the fantastic matchup for Devonta Smith, despite Devonta Smith looking like a beast in the preseason, this is a spot where we do not want to play him in week one. We would rather go with the better option, someone like a Chase Claypool, play it a little safe. And my God, we were wrong. These guys came out and they were ready to play. You look at Devonta Smith. This is someone 8 targets, 6 receptions, 71 receiving yards, and a touchdown. This is here to stay. This is someone that was arguably the best college wide receiver of all time, smashing Alabama's records in 2020. And I know a lot of people in the process of the NFL draft, they wanted to place a discount on that because it happened in his senior season. And we know that senior season production at the college level doesn't necessarily mean as much as the age-adjusted production that you could have earlier on in your career, where we came out and we said, ignore that with Devonta Smith. He is someone that in 2019 outproduced Henry Ruggs, Jerry Jeudy, and I mean, keep in mind, Jalen Waddle, all of those wide receivers on this team, including Najee Harris in 2019. Devonta Smith was the best wide receiver on Alabama in 2020. He broke NCAA records. So, of course, I mean, he was someone that was a great prospect. It looks like the size shouldn't be that much of a concern, so we can ignore that red flag now. And now the other wide receiver. And I will say, I honestly want to stand by our call to go through and bench this player. I mean, with Smith, I think that we can come out, we could say we were wrong. We should have understood this was a special talent. We should have been willing to make an exception to the rule and play him right away. Jalen Waddle coming out to ball. I mean, this is someone that had 6 targets, 4 receptions, 61 receiving yards, and a touchdown. So anybody who started Waddle in the game where Will Fuller was suspended, clearly you have made a fantastic choice, and that Jalen Waddle came through with a decent amount of production. I will say, don't think we can start Waddle whenever you do have Will Fuller coming back to this situation. Not going to be too excited about getting him in our week 2 lineup. But for anybody who went out there and started him right away, I mean, obviously, that's a fantastic start for you. And lastly, Jamar Chase, someone that we were hating on while he was being overdrafted before the preseason. When he was going over T. Higgins, we were screaming that it was a horrendous pick. But then after the preseason, called him a buy low player, given the fact that so many people overreacted to a very small sample with what you had with some drop passes. We've already been on record talking about why drop passes really lead to massive overcorrections in fantasy football, and that it is more important to just go through and draw the target in the first place rather than even having that drop pass. So yeah, Jamar Chase balling out, 7 targets, 5 receptions, over 100 yards, and a touchdown. Now, let's keep it going. Let's keep it going with things that I got wrong before we can kind of come out here and run some victory laps, because y'all always know that I love talking about what I got right. But of course, we have to address some of the elephants in the room. And this next one is a pretty big elephant. James Robinson cannot be trusted. Now, with James Robinson, y'all know this was someone that I was screaming was being overdrafted at the beginning part of the offseason. Whenever you had Travis Etienne in this situation, we came out and talked about that Urban Meyer was someone that brought in his guys at the running back position, and that he didn't have any allegiance to the running backs currently in that backfield, which is why the investment into Travis Etienne with a first-round pick was so meaningful, and why Etienne was going to be the starting running back and seeing the majority of touches in Jacksonville. I was all about Travis Etienne. And then all of a sudden, Etienne goes down. Looks like James Robinson is going to be the lead running back in Jacksonville. And I came out and said, yes, James Robinson's going to be the lead running back. And yes, we need to jump him up to being a third, fourth round pick based on the volume that he should have. However, Carlos Hyde is going to have a small role in this offense, and it's not going to be the same exact James Robinson that we got last year. Well, we were wrong. It looks like, James Robinson, it's not like he is going to be giving Carlos Hyde a small role in this offense. It looks like Carlos Hyde is going to be giving James Robinson a small role in this offense. Carlos Hyde goes out there 9 carries for 44 rushing yards, while James Robinson, 5 carries. James Robinson this week, 5 carries, 25 rushing yards. Urban Meyer does not care for the undrafted free agent, whether or not you think this is correct, whether or not you think you would do something differently as the Jacksonville Jaguars head coach. It doesn't matter, because your job isn't to figure out who the most talented player is. Your job is to figure out who's going to score the majority of these fake points that we're trying to chase. And it looks like that guy is not going to be James Robinson. I called him a must-start running back given the matchup and the projected opportunity, and we are horrendously wrong with that. I'm pretty sure if we pull up our week 1 rankings, I not only had James Robinson as a top 10 running back lock, I think we may have had him at like running back 5 or running back 6. I thought this would be a smash where the Houston Texans just rolled over. Trevor Lawrence looked solid against a bad defense, and also you had James Robinson as the lead running back here. Well, we were wrong on a multitude of levels, and I think it's very hard to see that coming. At least we don't have James Robinson in many leagues whatsoever. That can be the positive of it. But now our third lesson, this is when we can start to going through and begin to talk about our guys, the things that we got right here. Antonio Brown is back. Antonio Brown coming out Thursday night, 7 targets, 5 receptions, 121 yards, and a touchdown. And more importantly, anybody who watched that game saw exactly how good Antonio Brown looked. Now, I will say, y'all know that our approach to this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team in this season was fade Mike Evans, aggressively target both Chris Godwin and Antonio Brown. And it looks like that Mike Evans call was correct. Antonio Brown, this is the one player in the scenario where I'm saying maybe we look to sell just based on what we were seeing in the live chat with where you were going in terms of his overall value in the fantasy football community. Now, I can't say that just yet. I think that we need to go through and we need to rewatch a little bit of that game and understand where the targets were coming from on the field. Chris Godwin, I'm standing by the fact that Godwin, he was the best wide receiver value in fantasy drafts this year. That's what we were saying before the process. You look at Godwin, he had a ridiculous amount of volume, but it doesn't change the fact that Antonio Brown is back. Antonio Brown is a must-start wide receiver every week until we see something different. Now, Jameis Winston apparently can now see. Apparently, Jameis Winston was blind for the first 5 years in his NFL career, and we're just now learning that LASIK surgery can allow a quarterback to regain eyesight. Of course, that's mainly a joke, but my God, Jameis Winston coming out in 20 pass attempts, 5 touchdowns, and zero, throw them up. No interceptions at all for Jameis Winston. This is surprising. This is just eye-opening. And what was so bad, another one of our horrendous calls this week. I think this was possibly our worst call, and it wasn't even close. I came out on the live stream, especially on Sunday morning, and I was saying, plug and play Marquez Callaway. This is a game where the Saints are going to score a lot of points. They have nobody else to go to outside of Marquez Callaway and Alvin Kamara. Well, we got that one wrong. Oh my gosh, Marquez Callaway. I mean, coming through with nothing. And apparently it doesn't matter if Marquez Callaway is going to be on the field getting targets. It doesn't matter if Callaway's there. Apparently there are wide receivers. There are apparently just guys off the street that with Jameis Winston operating at the highest level with Sean Payton, I mean, they can catch the ball. They can find the end zone. Ridiculous what we saw with Winston. And now something that we have to come out here and have to say, I told you so. I told you so. I told you so. We're going to go through our next 2 bullet points like this. Is Joe Mixon, bell cow running back. What were we talking about coming into this year? We were talking about the situation for the Cincinnati Bengals being improved overall with the departure of Giovanni Bernard. You were going to have Joe Mixon's utilization in the receiving game go up. Joe Mixon, 29 carries, 4 receptions, 140 total yards, and a touchdown. I mean, I hopefully can go through and find a tweet that we got so much hate. I was going and telling people, why would you ever draft Ezekiel Elliott in the first round when you can find Ezekiel Elliott in the second round with Joe Mixon? And oh my gosh, we got a ridiculous amount of hate for saying stuff like that. I'll probably try to find a tweet and throw it up on the screen for y'all if I have time before the game ends right now. And then our next lesson is anybody who is drafting a Derrick Henry at the top of the first round needs to go through and reassess what they are doing in PPR formats. I mean, Derrick Henry coming out in 17 carries, 3 receptions, 77 yards. And this is the problem with investing into a running back like Derrick Henry, where if you're going to be touchdown dependent, if you are going to be dependent on the usage that you have purely in the receiving game, purely in the rushing game and nothing in the receiving game, you're going to be up for these very up and down weeks. Derrick Henry was someone that we identified with so many red flags. 27 years old, 800 total touches the past 2 seasons, and Arthur Smith going to be the head coach for the Atlanta Falcons. That did not look great at all. I mean, so many red flags with Derrick Henry, and of course, it's way too early to be writing him off for the entire season right now, but I think we're starting to see that Henry isn't as guaranteed of a lock as most people thought. I will say that the game script was not great for Derrick Henry at all, but at the same time, this was supposed to be a defense where the Tennessee Titans were going to be able to go through and walk through it, sleepwalk through that defense. And apparently with Arthur Smith gone to Atlanta, maybe it's just a little bit harder for this offense to pick up first downs, a little bit harder for them to actually get trips to the red zone. Now our next lesson is the Detroit Lions looking like they're going to be a split backfield down to a T. Now I'll say a lot of people got lucky with this Detroit Lions situation in both Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift. I know people are going to say, oh, Mason, this is what you get with garbage time. No, this was such a blowout by the 49ers to the point where, I mean, it didn't matter if the Detroit Lions just got these cheapy touchdowns at the running back position. I mean, you just had it where this wasn't even a football game whatsoever. I mean, the production at the end of the game by the Detroit Lions honestly shouldn't even count for fantasy, but it doesn't matter. If you started either Detroit running back, you kind of just, I want to say, got extremely lucky. I mean, with Jamal Williams, 9 carries and 9 targets out of the backfield, over 100 total yards and a touchdown. DeAndre Swift, 11 carries, 11 targets out of the backfield, over 100 total yards and a touchdown as well. I do not want to be taking anything at all away from this game and saying, okay, well, DeAndre Swift, he's a good running back. Jamal Williams, he's a good running back. They need to be hitting our starting lineups. No, I think it's hard to say that for sure. I think what's easier to say is, well, this is going to be a split backfield where it's going to be a lot harder to try to figure out what is going on a week-to-week basis. It's so hard to take anything away from that 49ers game, to be honest, except that the 49ers are going to have an elite offensive line. They're going to have an elite defense at the same time. I mean, with the 49ers, it does not matter who is at running back. They have Elijah Mitchell out there with 19 carries, 104 yards, and a rushing touchdown to go along with it. Elijah Mitchell, a 5th round drafted rookie running back this year. I know a lot of people were talking about him in Dynasty previously this offseason. And if you identified Elijah Mitchell in your deep Dynasty format, congrats. That's fantastic. Personally, I'm going to be betting on Trey Sermon for the long term in this offense. I understand Trey Sermon wasn't active today, but guys, Trey Sermon is the guy that you're going to want here. This is honestly making me more excited about our guys in Trey Sermon and Trey Lance. Maybe it means we don't get to see him for quite a while, but even if it means that, I mean, I'm willing to be sitting here and waiting because the situation that they are going to be stepping into is going to be one of the best situations in the NFL. We have already discussed this with the offensive line, with George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Kyle Shanahan. I mean, I cannot wait until we get both Trey Lance and Trey Sermon into this offense. It's going to be sooner rather than later. Now, speaking of pretty good offenses, I think our next lesson learned is the Kansas City Chiefs are a pretty good offense. I mean, I don't know if you've heard of this guy. It's like Tyreek Hill, something along those lines. It's like a deep sleeper. This is kind of why you're subscribed to the channel, honestly, because you're not going to be hearing this from that many other people. But this guy, Tyreek Hill, probably you should be going to your waiver wire and not adding him right away because obviously it's kind of too far under the radar, but at least adding him to your watch list because this guy looks like he could be a stud. 11 receptions, 197 receiving yards, and a touchdown. This guy, Travis Kelce, also sounds pretty good in the offense. He comes away with his own 6 receptions, 76 yards, a receiving touchdown to go along with it. I mean, both of these guys look like they're going to be getting almost every single target in this offense. This guy, Patrick Mahomes, looks pretty good at the same time. You should probably be valuing them as highly as you can in your own leagues. You probably should have been drafting both Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. I don't know where they were going in fantasy drafts. I'd imagine you could have got them in one of the last rounds of your draft, but wherever they were going, you probably should have drafted them there. Now, our last lesson learned is probably the most surprising. Mark Ingram is somehow the lead running back in Houston. Now, y'all know we have been doing so many drafts on the stream. We have done, I don't know how many underdog drafts, and in every single one of those drafts, over 200. I mean, you had David Johnson and Philip Lindsay getting selected in every single one. You know how many drafts I saw Mark Ingram get selected in 18 rounds? 0.0. What happened here? Where did this come from? How did we miss this so badly? How is Mark Ingram all of a sudden coming out 26 carries in this game? And Philip Lindsay and David Johnson, the guys that were supposed to be leading this backfield, 11 carries total? This doesn't make sense. I'll promise you whenever we do have our waiver wire running back video coming out tomorrow morning that you're going to have Mark Ingram on that list. I don't know how this happened. I don't know if you can start Mark Ingram with confidence until we see a repeat performance. But as of now, it's just so surprising to go through and see that. And now our last lesson learned, this is not in the top 10, but it's an honorable mention. I have to throw it in here because I was 100% wrong about this, and I want to go through and add this to the record. Damian Harris looks like a stud. Now, Damian Harris, if you went through and started him in fantasy, yeah, it didn't necessarily provide you a ton of production. I will say that it's going to be a very typical Damian Harris line. And this is why we kind of avoid the running backs that are not going to be getting heavily used in their receiving games. I mean, Damian Harris coming out 100 rushing yards, 2 receptions, and 17 receiving yards. So at the end of the day, he got 13 and a half fantasy points. So he's definitely going to be a touchdown or bust player at the running back position. But just some of the runs that he ripped off behind a really good offensive line, it looks like Damian Harris, until Ramondre Stevenson does expand his own role in this offense, is probably going to be a guy that you want to start every nice matchup that he has. Now, thank you, buddies. I really hope y'all enjoyed this video. I really hope that y'all had a fantastic week 1. And of course, anything that you have learned, any questions that you have, leave them down in the comment section. Let me know how you did this week. And thank you so much for everybody supporting the channel. We got so many nice messages saying, Mason, oh, thank you so much for telling me to go through and start Deebo Samuel. Or Mason, I hate you so much. Why do you tell me to start Tyler Boyd? We've had so many messages. So thank you everybody for reaching out. And yeah, that's all I got for y'all. Subscribe to the channel and have a great day.